we go. Lovely. So morning to those of you who are already here. Just to let you know, we are recording this meeting. We always do that because we end up having a lot of people who sign up for the webinars and for one reason or another can't make it. And we do, correct me if I'm wrong, Kirsty, we do send out the recordings, right? Just nod. Yes, we send out the recordings and we also put them onto our YouTube channel. So if you're ever feeling like, oh, I've got half an hour to kill, I'm going to see what else Charlotte has rambled about. We've got a whole YouTube channel of about a year's worth of these. So if you're ever looking for a quick half an hour session to fill in, we have got plenty of others. Kirsty, if you don't mind, just let people in as and when they arrive, please. Thank you. Much appreciated. Okay, so we're going to make a start. So this is normally the bit where I say apologies that David Hudson is not here. I've actually cut him out because he has again let me down. He's not here. He is off with a client, which I cannot blame him for, but you get my lovely mugshot instead. So for those of you who I have not met, those of you I've not worked with before, my name is Charlotte and I am the owner and director of the HR department up in Coventry. So a little bit, oh, we've got a message already, Kirsty. Oh, someone's got a fire alarm. Crikey. Okay. Jim will be back. Luckily, we're recording it, so Jim's not missed anything. Yeah, so I'm up here in the beautiful sunny Midlands today. Normally, I do have my very glamorous assistant, David Hudson, but clients always come first in this game, so he is off. So you've just got me today. Those of you who've not done these sessions with us before, we normally only do a 30-minute session, but actually, because we've got quite a lot to cover, we are doing a 45-minute session. So for those of you who need to dip off at the half-hour mark, I completely understand. Those of you who are in it for the long haul, welcome on board, because we're going to be covering a lot. Hopefully it's going to be useful with some actual practical help in it. So we're going to cover cost of getting it wrong, not just the money side, but there are other things to it. Why attracting and assessing are really, really important, that the interview stage and the advert stage are just as important as the onboarding. And then fair hiring. Oh, I can't even read my own bit. Fair hiring and brand. Why those are so important. And I mean, those of you are guessing you're here because you do recruitment of some form within your business or within your organization, which means that will know how hard it is out here. Kirsty and I have done a lot of recruitment together over the years, and there's definitely been, I would say, last 18 months, definitely, it's been a real change. 2 years ago, it was still difficult. We're still getting a lot of CVs, but at least those CVs weren't all necessarily from ChatGPT or Copilots. Whereas now, the amount that is I'd say it's finding a needle in a haystack to find one that isn't done through AI of some sort. So hopefully what you'll walk away with, we're going to be more positive today. What you will walk away with, what you will have learned, what I will have embedded and ingrained into you are some practical things. So we're not just looking at this is what you should do in theory, but we're going to go into some examples. Hopefully we've got enough time to do some more detailed examples, but if not, we will just do as much as physically possible. So we were looking at attracting people to the job. What we don't want is more of them necessarily. Those of you who've done recruitment know that you could put one very basic job up and get 500 people, and actually 20 people, those are good people. The rest is just filler. We want to reduce the risk and cost of a bad hire. If you've ever had somebody in your business who's not a good fit, you know how draining that is on everyone's resources. Building a fair process. Again, you may have something in place. So in this case, it's just adding to it. Take away what serves you, what is good for you. If there's something I say and you're like, man, so if that's going to work for us, that's cool. That's fine. Just take what you need from it. It's a pre-session after all, so take what you can. And then the last bit is just thinking about your employer brand, which sounds very cheesy and very kind of, yeah, we'll go cheesy, a bit cringy, but actually the reality is that people talk and bad reviews talk more than anything. If you have a bad meal at a restaurant, you're going to tell like 5-10 people. If you have a good meal, you might tell 2 because you sort of expect that's the standard you expect. So we want better hires, lower risk, stronger brand. Nice and simple. hopefully that was what you will walk away with today. So we'll make a start at the very beginning, the cost of getting it wrong. Now, the cost really is not just money. So we always think of cost equals money, but actually the reality is there are so many more things that are wasted and used up when we bring on people and they're not a good fit. So we'll start very beginning, the recruitment, onboarding, training. Those are simple time and money wasted because you've gone through that whole process. You've probably used several people within your business to hire, to look at the hiring process. You've trained them, you've onboarded them. You might actually have to physically pay for their training, and then they're not a good hire and you end up having to get rid of them. That's no good to anybody. Management time. Management time can be all the way through. I put there about performance issues because it's an obvious one, but actually your management time could be used in the recruitment, in the onboarding, in the training. And again, your management team are going to cost you a lot more money in hours than anybody else. So if we're using them to train new people, we want, cheesy phrase, but we want a return on that investment. We're looking at productivity and service quality dips while the gap persists. I like that word persists because what we find a lot with recruitment is people, you spent the time, you spent the money. If you've gone through a recruitment agency, you probably paid a fair whack for somebody. And if we're getting to the point where they are a performance issue or they're just not a good fit, okay, what I will say is not every job is right for every person. And in theory, you can train people and you can mold them and you can give them ways of working. But actually, the reality is not every job is a good fit for every person. When I was at uni, I worked the next sale at 6 a.m, and that was not a good fit for me. I was not great at 6 a.m. I was not great at a busy sale with people queuing out the door. I was not good in a place that I'd never been. So I learned from that mistake, took the paycheck and never went back. Because not every job is right for every person. So that gap, where you've still got a gap, a disparity between what the person can do, what the person wants to do, what the person is capable of doing, there's going to be a gap. There's going to be a bit of a vacuum. And the reason I've used the word persist is actually because if we're not dealing with it and putting more time and money into dealing with it, that it's going to stay there. That gap's not going to go away. And actually brings me nicely into my next point. The team morale is going to suffer. People do not like feeling like they're carrying their colleagues. People don't like, they will help when people are new, employees are always, hopefully, always generous to new colleagues. For the most part, you want to train somebody well because training somebody well takes pressure off you. Training somebody well means that when you're on holiday, somebody picks up the slack. Training somebody new benefits everybody. So in theory, everyone's normally on board. Where they come off board is where, again, the gap persists and the person is not getting it, they're not doing it, they're either not right for the job or they're not physically able for the job or they're not willing to do the job, and whichever one of those it fits into, that makes other people feel like, well, why should I bother? Why am I working hard and this new person has come in and they're not bothering? And it really, again, really creates a divide. And what you don't want is an us versus them, especially if you go through a really busy period and you need to hire a few new people at once. I've seen it before where you hire 2 or 3 new people into the team and suddenly there's an us versus them, there's a new versus old, and you don't want that. So there are times when you need to hire several people at once, and the reality is you don't want that gap, because again, where there's a gap, there's that void, and people fill the void, and it's never good stuff. People are not like, I'm going to put some real quality time and effort in this person. They're going to be like, I hate them. They're a menace. I don't even like how they make tea. And it goes downhill quick. So we don't want the team to suffer. And then back to the start again. We need to get rid of them. And that might cost us money. And we need to rehire, which then brings us back to the top of that box. And we've got to recruit, we've got to onboard, we've got to train. Okay. So the cost is not just the money, it's the time, it's the effort, it's your will to live some days. Because if you've ever looked at a job advert that you've put out and you've got 500 CVs, Kirsty will attest to this. Where do you start? How do you start? If you were a small business, it feels overwhelming. It feels daunting. There are days when you look at the, we used an ATS system to help us. And there were days when I looked at web, nope, no, thank you. No, don't want to, refuse. which is not the right way to do it. I am a professional. I want to be good at my job. But the idea of looking at 500 CVs and trying to find a needle in a haystack is very, very morale dampening. So we're looking at trying to move from this. Okay. So we're looking at those things that can go wrong. How can we get them to go right? So this is a bit that I really wanted to talk a bit about. How we do time. Those of you who've not done these before, I tend to waffle. So you're going to see me like leaning off because I'm checking what the time is on my phone just to make sure that we're not overdoing it. So this is the bit that hopefully you will take a lot. So the aim with this is not more, okay? Sometimes people think, well, if I can just cast a wide net, if I can get loads of people, I am going to find a little diamond in the rough. I'm going to find, we employed so-and-so last year and they were amazing and they just came out of a random group hire. They were fantastic. And I would say, yeah, you do get people like that. Of course you do. But the reality is not very often. And they are the rarity. They are the exception to the rule. You're not hiring 20 people and all 20 are brilliant. You're probably hiring 20 people. 5 won't show up. 4 are useless. That leaves us 11. And of those 11, some will quit. Some won't like it. Some won't be good at it, and you're left with maybe 2 or 3. And of those 2 or 3, you might not even have any good ones. They may just be average, below average, needs more improvement. So it's not a guaranteed thing that bigger numbers equals better, basically. So here we go. Number 1, we are defining the role properly. So be clear on the skills, behaviors, and outcomes. Now that sounds quite broad, but actually the reality is you know what you are looking for. Okay, if Kirsty won the lottery and left me today, I would be looking for someone like Kirsty. So I would want the skills and qualities, not necessarily experience, because sometimes experience comes with time. I want the things I see in Kirsty that are valuable to me. I want that dedication. I want that attention to detail. I want that honesty. I want that integrity. I want that person who can say, I think this is wrong. We need to double check it before it goes to a client, because I need that. She's fabulous. Kirsty also is amazing at formatting my documents. If you've ever been doing a big contract or something and lost the numbers, Kirsty is a whiz at that. I need someone who could do that for me. I love her. I need her. Those are the qualities I'm looking for. So you maybe don't want to write your advert like that, but you need to know in your head that that's what you're looking for. Quite often, we are broad. We are trying to sound professional. We are trying to sound like big companies, and actually we are small businesses and we have a lot of heart to them. That's sort of the point of being an SME, is that you are probably owner run, probably family run for a lot of people, and the heart is the core of it. The people are the core of it. So we don't want to put, I mean, you can, but what we're looking at, we don't want to put stuff like good communication skills. Rubbish. What does that mean? I can text at 4 a.m. I can read an email in the car. Like what does that actually mean? What are we actually looking for? Are we looking for, if we're thinking about customer service role, are we looking for somebody who is calm when dealing with complaints? Can people give you an example of that? Are we looking at somebody who is quick thinking so that they can deal with situations? Are we looking for somebody who will be proactive and make decisions on their own and not have to keep referring back to somebody and peeing off the customer by taking too long? Are we looking at somebody who can problem solve and can see the bigger picture? Are we looking at somebody who puts the customer first and understands and empathizes with them? All that could fit under the good communication umbrella, but we're just saying good communication because it sounds like the sort of thing you put on a job advert. So if we are looking at that customer service role, that would be totally different, good communication skills for customer service, because you are customer facing, to maybe somebody in a behind the scenes admin role. What does good communication skills look like for them? Well, their likelihood is we probably don't need to know if they are good at dealing with customers with empathy, because they're probably not going to deal with customers. But we need to know if they've got good interpersonal skills. We need to know how well they get on in a team. And that may be that further down the road, and I will talk about this, is maybe they need to meet the team before they start. Because sometimes you need to see, an interview is a stressful situation. An interview is something you can prepare for, so that you could think about what questions they're going to ask me, what are they going to want to know, what are they what are they going to want to hear as well. It's not just, some of it is performative, and it's, fairly easy to do a good, not easy, but pretty straightforward to do a good interview. What is harder is to then carry on those good things that you've shown through interactions with several people at once, a lunch with somebody. All those sorts of things are hard to carry on. So when we are thinking about the right candidate, really drill into, even if you just do it on a piece of paper for yourself, when I've done the advert, what do I really, really want in it? Which kind of goes into my next one. So we write the adverts that will sell. So purpose, flexibility, progression, okay? Not just task list. Task list can be the job description for later. I need you to use Xero. I need you to do this. I need you to do that. I need you will answer emails. You will answer phone calls. Yeah, great. Lovely. Most jobs are that. Most jobs are like doing things, or they're answering emails. That's kind of how they work. But actually, what are they doing? Are they going to team meetings to provide feedback on the week before? Are they updating systems? Okay, if they're updating systems, what does that mean? Is it Xero? Is it this? Is it that? What systems are they updating? Because you need to know, have they used them before? Have they seen them before? Are they easy to train on? Do they need to go away and do a course on them to be able, if you're using Sage or something, if that person's never used it before, you're going to have to train them up. So they may have 10 other wonderful qualities, but actually you need to think about, okay, they've got those. Am I willing to put the time and money into training them on something so they can use it? Or do I need to find a candidate that has got those skills, and maybe we can train them up on some of the other skills that are less costly? Are we talking about development within the advert? Is there a chance for development? If we are, keen to progress our people, and that there is chances to move into management, or to have training, or to go off and do courses, put it in the advert. Nowadays, every a job is a job at the end of the day, but it's the extra things you can have from it. The benefits are wonderful and great. The pay, always useful. I come to work because I get paid. Not doing this for free, much as I love it, and always happy to help. Need to pay the mortgage, and other people are the same. But actually, there's other things. If I knew that I was taking on a job that was sort of mid-level, but there was no career progression, there was nowhere, I'm going in here and that's it. I might wiggle sideways a bit, but I'm never going up. That for me, I'm nearly 40. I'm like, probably want a bit more from it. If I've got to work for another 30 years or whatever it is, I probably want to do a little bit more. If I'm slightly older, or I've done a management role, I might want to be happy at that mid-level. I want to just not have a stressful life. I want to come in, do my work, get to go home. That's fine. That's great for people at different times of their life. Equally, if you're hiring a younger person into that role, they may leave, because if this is the level and there's no up, they're going to want the up. Well, most people will want the up. So, put that in there. Put in, what are you doing for your people? Are you doing training sessions? Are you giving them a breadth of knowledge? Is there a chance, if you've got different departments, is there a chance to be cross-skilled, to be upskilled across multiple places? Having more strings to your bow is always beneficial. Having more people who can cover holidays or sickness or in emergencies, or if there's a Christmas rush, always useful. Previous life, I used to be a manager in Tesco, and we always used to multi-skill people, because it's good for them, it's good for your brain, and it's good for the company, because you can move people around them. And actually, you may get somebody who's never once in a life thought about working on, I'm going to use Xero again as the example, doing invoices and tallying them and doing all that work and talk to the clients and get the payments in. You might find they're really good at it. Some people have bizarrely weird and good skill sets, but if you never give them a chance, how would they ever know? I might be an amazing ice hockey player, but I would never know, because I've never played ice hockey. So you've got to give people a chance with these things. And then we're thinking about part 3. Where do your adverts go? Do you just chuck it on Indeed, cross your fingers, hope for the best? Are we thinking about the type of people we want? Okay, if we want younger people in because we realize that we are maybe an slightly older workforce, we need to get some more skills in. With people who've got skills that they want to pass along before they retire, those sorts of things. The colleges, I've got a great working relationship with Coventry College. They have an amazing program of business, and they are always looking for people to go in and do work with them. They're always looking for placements that their students can go on, practical real world skills that will make their people hireable. So go make a relationship with these people. Are you looking at trades? There are hospitality ones, catering ones. There are so many specific areas. Think about those sorts of things. Also think about other areas of employment. It's not something that everybody is comfortable with, but there are places for ex-offenders. There are places for army veterans or, military service personnel to get them back into the workforce. So you've got a whole, if you're getting somebody in from the army, you already know that they have got that structure, that discipline, respect. What else can you do? They may have been a mechanic in the army. So great, they've got some brilliant skills that they could bring to your engineering company. So you need to think wide. If you want to get talent, we think wide, but not more, if that makes sense. So you want to put your job adverts in several places, but you want them to be targeted. You want them to be, put it on LinkedIn, reach out to some people on LinkedIn who kind of look like they are a good match for you. And then the other place is referrals. And this is one of my favorite places. So I would always say to your employees, your current employees, definitely, if they know somebody, bring them in. And also reach out to your past employees. Obviously not the ones that are, left for a reason. But if you've got some good people who went off to career progression, went off to have a baby, went off to go to uni, finish a degree, whatever that looks, took a different career path, they still know people. If they were a good employee for you, they're likely to be a good employee for someone else, and they may know other good people. So there's a bit of a risk in employing them with people like that. But there's also, you're opening up to, again, not just more, but specific more people, because, if they've got a friend who's, within your sector, why wouldn't you try and get them in for a job interview? I have people all the time, but who will have friends who work within HR who are looking for a job. They always pass me their details because I know people. I'm not hiring, but I might know somebody else who's hiring, or I can put it on my LinkedIn and try and help, boost it to other people. So those are the main three things. We're looking for a better match. I mean, smaller is more hopeful than anything, I think, at this point, because ChatGPT and automations have made it so that you get lots of these. But what we're looking for is people who are better match. If you know exactly what you want, you write the advert to attract good people, and you go to where the people are, or where you think they are. Hopefully, you then get to people. So, why do we want to reduce the risk of a bad hire? So we want to reduce the risk for obvious reasons. It saves us the time, the money, the effort, saves our sanity as well. Because if we are using a good structure, we're using good questions, we're using criteria to score them. I'm going to say this one is a bit counterintuitive, because what I will say is you do sometimes get a gut feel about people, and you do get a gut feeling about if they're going to go well with a team or not. But big underlined, a gut feeling is not going to protect you if you go to tribunal. So you need all these things in this list are essentially documentation, clear, consistent process, something that you write down. It's not just in your head, it's not just in your manager's head, it's something that you put onto paper, that you have thought about, made clear decisions on. Because were things to go wrong, were somebody to take you to tribunal, because actually if you fall out of employment law, there are some things, even before they come in for an interview, if you are not living up to your responsibilities under the Equality Act 2010, you can be taken to tribunal. There's been I thought there was just one person. There's actually been several cases of, I think it's probably men, mostly men, who have made it their job to look through job adverts and pick out gendered wording, or wording that could be, ableist, or wording that could be ageist, and then pick that up, taking it, sometimes not even applied for the job, just taking it straight to an employment tribunal and said, you can't apply for this job because it says you need to be fit and healthy. Well, I have a long-term health condition. I am not technically fit and healthy, but I could do that job. and they are stopping me from being able to even apply because I can't fit that criteria. I'm getting paid for it. And then these people do it over and over and over again, and that is their job, because places like Severn Trent, Jaguar Land Rover, Tesco, these big places don't want the hassle of having to defend all the claims that they come in against them, because people love to claim against big organizations. So they just throw a bit of money and go away, take £1,000, I don't want to talk to you. Somebody does that 5-6 times, they're on a lovely salary for the year. So don't feel that just because you haven't employed somebody, the risk has gone away. This is why I bang on about documentation all the time during these webinars. It's probably one of the biggest things that I talk about, because if you write stuff down, it is your documented evidence. Appreciate if you are interviewing 20 people, it seems like a real chore and it's going to feel, oh, not another one of these. But it's really important, because actually in a year's time, if somebody comes back with a claim, or 6 months' time, for example, comes back with a claim, are you going to remember everything that happened? Or are they going to blur into all the other candidates that you were interviewing? And if they do, at least you'd have that documentation to look at and go, oh, I do remember them. This is okay. That's why we did that. That's why we made that decision. So you've got something in writing, because you have a gut feeling. And I'm always, gut feelings can be useful, but there is no way to prove a gut feeling or explain a gut feeling at tribunal. And you don't want to be standing in front of a tribunal judge trying to explain, oh, well, I didn't hire this person because the vibes were off. It's not good. It's not a good look. It's not going to look professional. It's very hard to defend. Energy in the room wasn't right is not going to be good enough. But actually, if we follow this process, we follow, a nice, simple structure. If the person's not right for the job, that will come through. It will come. They won't be able to answer the questions as evidence-based as you like. Go back to when we were thinking about that, what would being specific and defining the role. If you are looking for examples of where they were calm with complaints that they've dealt with, if they can't give you that, well, that's one of the important things that you want. So if they're not given that, that's a mark against them, or they're not gaining a mark. It's going to be more positive. If they can't talk to you about where they actively problem solve for the customer, again, that's a mark against them. So naturally, candidates who are not a good fit sort of self-select themselves out. So we just need to document that. One I will talk about is practical task. Kirsty, is that my warning? I could just see you hovering. Yeah. Okay, cool. We are good. I've got a couple more slides on this, and then we can do Q&A. So one that I think people sometimes forget to do is a practical task. So I would get them in, if you have an office or something, and get them to do something practical, even if you make it up. And look, if you're not new here, if you are new here, you won't have heard me rant about AI, but I'm not a fan of AI, but I think it is a useful tool. And it is a tool that can be helpful for this, not to test the person, but to make up a practical task. Because sometimes you don't want to. The world that I work in, HR department, we are very conscious of security and confidentiality and GDPR and data and all of those things. So I would never give somebody, emails from a client to look at. But what I could do is get Copilot to use some of my emails as an example and make a fake task for somebody to do to see how they would respond. That's how I got my first job within HR, is they sent out a sheet with 4 scenarios. They said, there's 4 scenarios on this sheet, and please tell me how you would respond. And that's fine, went through all of them. But also I emailed back and was like, there's only 3 scenarios on this sheet. Am I missing part of the document? And it turns out there used to be 4. They deleted one of them because they weren't as keen on it. They thought it was taking people too long. And then they'd forgot to update the wording on the sheet that they gave out to people. And I was the first person in about 30 people to say there isn't a number 4 on this sheet. People had just done it and then forgotten at the beginning it said there were 4. So that's the only reason. But things like that don't necessarily lay traps for people, but it's a good indication if somebody has read the instructions. Now, I wanted the job, so I read the instructions over and over and over and realized there's only 3 scenarios and it says there 4. So I brought it up. So a practical task, really helpful. Maybe get them in, and again, get them in and meet the team, because sometimes the team can have gut instincts and you don't have to You don't have to justify those. You could just write down, did not interact well with the team. Team did not feel that they were talking very much. And again, some of that might be nerves, some of that might be, neurodiversity, some of it might be whatever. But generally, when you put somebody in, we're all pack animals. You'll know if they go well with the pack or not. Take references. I cannot stress how many times clients say to me, this person's not very good. And I'm like, okay, well, what did the references come back? When they say, I didn't bother. Okay. Now I realize that in this day and age, there's no such thing as a bad reference. Okay. But sometimes it's, if you send the email, can you fill in this form? They come back. Yep, this is the date that they worked. I sometimes phone up and just say, oh, just wanted to double check the dates. I don't, it doesn't bother me. And if you could tell me, if they had any promotions, because I could just see the one job that they started on. And sometimes when you've got the person on the phone, they might tell you a little bit more information that they don't necessarily want in writing, but they might give you a little hint on the phone. So do that. Complete the right to work check. This is a no-brainer. You should be completing right to work checks for everybody. Okay? Because there is nothing worse than finding out that UK Customs and Border Patrol are going to come to your office, fine you 30 grand for having somebody that doesn't have the right to work in the UK. We don't need that. And clear probation and review plan. Those first 90 odd days, 3 months, 6 months, however long you're giving, are really important. I would say the first 3 months are the most important because you need to train this person enough that they should, underlined, should be competent enough at their job that the rest of the little bits can be picked up or can be developed and can be made better. If you're not seeing that in the first 3 months, that's the problem. Okay. It might be that you're able to kind of mold them and shape them a little bit more in the next 3 months. But the reality is, if you are 3 months in and you've done your side, that's very important. Don't just leave them and hope for the best. If you've done your side, you should be seeing that diamond coming out of the coal. Okay. If you're not seeing it, you either need to change your plans and how you're training and go for a different approach, a different trainer, a different method. Not everyone learns the same way. But we can't just get to the end of the 6 months and be like, they were terrible. Okay, let's start again. Because that's what this whole webinar has been about, is let's not waste time and effort and money, but we should be getting the good people. So structure beats instinct every time. But don't discount your guts. Just document the bits that your gut is pointing out. If your gut is pointing out to you, ooh, they've been late to things, that could be a pattern, be a problem. Document that bit, not just the gut feeling. Okay. So fair, inclusive, compliance. So we've already touched on a bit of this. So we are protecting the business. So we want to widen our talent pool. Like I said, we want to go out and find good people in different places. We want to find them where they are at. Okay. We don't just want to stick something on Indeed and hope for the best, but we do have a responsibility to understand what we should be doing. I've already talked to you about writing inclusive adverts, thinking about the specifics of the role requirements, and actually which of those are, important and attached to a characteristic. So, for example, the example I always use for this is we had a client who had an office that was upstairs, and they discounted somebody who had a first interview over Zoom. Great, wonderful. And then partway through the interview, the person had, they were great. They were like basically writing her the interview, come to the next interview part of the email. We're like, brilliant, she's wonderful. And then they realized partway through, based on some of the things that she said, that she used a wheelchair. And they decided not to offer her a next stage interview, despite her being immensely qualified, great for the job, had a great first interview, because where they worked, it was the lab, it was some sort of setup. They didn't have a lift because it was an old building. They didn't have a lift in it, and they only had stairs. And they decided, because she used a wheelchair, she couldn't get upstairs. Didn't have a conversation with her, didn't speak to her about it, just said, you've been rejected for the job. As it turns out, she does use a wheelchair, but she's not solely confined to the wheelchair. She can get up, she could walk. So she could, and they could, have a secondary wheelchair for her upstairs, so she could leave her one downstairs, take that home every night. She had one upstairs, and they'd be able to do that through access to work. She could walk the stairs, and she could sit at a desk. It was just the longer term, walking around, or if she had to walk around all day, the wheelchair would be better for her. It would, tire her out less, put less stress onto her body. So they didn't ask that question. So she could have gone upstairs for this interview, because she could have gone upstairs and just sat down, had the interview, come back downstairs, got back into her chair, gone home. No problems. They didn't do that. They didn't even ask the question. So we need to think about, that's a bit of a physical reminder of the things we can do. But actually, there are other things throughout the process. You may have somebody who's slightly older who's not great with technology, and it may be that they're struggling to use Zoom if they've never used it before. There are all sorts of things that we need to think about. We need to offer adjustments. Would it be better to meet them, in that case, with the person in the wheelchair? Could they have met her somewhere else? Could they have gone to Costa, which is wheelchair accessible and all on one level, and had the interview there instead of, if they felt uncomfortable, and then ask questions then about our office is upstairs. Would you be able to? How can we adjust this? Those sorts of things. And again, we're going to talk about documentation. We want to document these things, because actually, if we're not able to support somebody, or if they are asking for an adjustment within the role potentially that we're not able to accommodate, we need to have a reason for it. Again, it's not a gut instinct. It's not, well, I sort of feel like they're not going to be able to do it, so I'm just not going to offer it to them. We need to have had that conversation. That person may actually come to that decision themselves of like, actually, now that you've explained that part, I don't think I'm going to have to withdraw from the role. I'm not going to be able to. Some people, ask the question, why do we need a fair process? Because I don't want anybody to have to stand in front of a tribunal judge and try and explain, why they didn't offer a larger print version of something somebody had trouble with their sight, because these are easy, simple wins. And actually, if you have better candidates with better skills, knowledge, and experience, that's allowed. People with disabilities are just people. People with, protected characteristics in the Equality Act are just people. So if there's somebody who is better qualified for the role, that's fine. That's allowed to happen. But what we can't do is be discounting people because of something we've assumed. Lovely. Oh, did I see there's something in the chat box, Kirsty? Oh, Jim is leaving us. Jim, who came back from his fire drill, is leaving us. No, that's fine, because obviously, like I said, with this a 45-minute one, so we're just literally, this is our last slide of content, and then we'll do some takeaways and then Q&As if anybody has got them in a minute. So the last bit is about employer brand, and like I said at the beginning, it sounds a little bit cringy and like big tech kind of, we're very brand focused and all, but actually you forget that your brand is the things that people say when they're talking about working for you. It's the things that your employees say. It's the little comments that they make when new people are starting. It's the way that you treat people. So I've got three stages on this. The first is candidate experience. I personally have experienced the end of this where they don't communicate to you clearly. You don't even know if you've not been successful. So you put in your information, you put in your CV, you put everything, nothing. Like, you just ghosted, nothing. So if they're a no, let them know they're a no early on. You might look at their CV, they're not right. Great, fabulous, that's fine. Document if you need to, even if it's just a note on the ATS system, why they're a no, moving on. We want to respond quickly, clearly. That also works in the reverse. So if they're a no, let's clear them out and get them. They can move on to looking for another job or going to another place. They won't then be hounding you, asking you, you looked at my CV, have I got an interview? On the flip, if you've got a good person, let them in. I cannot stand interviews that are like 3-4 rounds and a test and a this and a that, and then you meet this person. Like, how many people do I need to meet? Like, who am I going to be working for? Where am I going to be working? I personally feel if your interview has got more than 3 stages to it, you're going to lose good people by the time you get through it. Unless you're doing it very quickly, you're going to lose good people. So you want to close that loop with everybody, whether they're a good candidate or not. You don't want to miss out on good people because you take too long to get through. You do the stage 1 interviews and then you're humming and hawing. Good people go quickly because other employers will also be interviewing them, will see that they're a good person and will snatch them. Kirsty and I have experienced this, even though we are very quick and very on the ball about getting back to people. Sometimes between the first interview and the second interview, they've had other second stage interviews and got jobs. It's fine. That's the way the world works. But at least then we are closing the loop on those people and get moving the good people on quickly. Tell your story. So what's it really like to work with you? Get them to meet the team, get them to come in for, one of the things that I love is if you've got somebody and they've done great at the interviews, ask them to stay after the second interview if they were good and have a cup of coffee with the team. Go grab some biscuits and just everyone have a chat. I used to work with a brilliant lady who used to just ask the most random questions to just make people feel welcome. What's your favorite biscuit? What do you order from the Chinese takeaway? Do you have a favorite pie? That sort of stuff. What was the last film you saw at the cinema? Stuff that's kind of generic, kind of doesn't matter. We're not asking probing questions about, their personality. What's your favorite flavor of crisps? Great one. Nice, simple, neutral. We can ask everybody. Right. But at the same time, you can see how that person interacts with the team. You can see how your team interact with that person. And then that's where, again, I know I said we're not relying on the gut instinct, but you will feel the vibe. You will feel if this person could be a good fit. It's not solely about the vibe, but it's a good way to find out if they're going to fit in, is get them in, get them to understand what you do, how you do it, not just, meeting somebody over Zoom, so hard for them to get a feel of the business. And the last point is onboarding. And I know we talked about this a little bit, so we can kind of rush through it a bit, but those first few months with people are the most key. You want them to feel good about being here. They have decided, I know you're paying them, I don't know you've given them the job, but actually they have decided to come to you. So are you living up to that? It's no good if we do an amazing recruitment process and we're so on the ball and then their onboarding and their induction and everything else is just forgotten or it's not been structured or we've not bothered. Because actually, if you are telling them what you're expecting, you're following up, you're making sure that they're doing it, you're giving them feedback in a timely manner, they should turn into a good person and a good, productive member of the team. If you're not, you're going to end up having to recruit all over again. So we want to save ourselves the time and the heartache of doing that. So that is everything on and the slides work. So we're going on to key takeaways. So hiring the wrong person, keep banging on about it, cost you time, cost you money. It's going to be terrible for us. We want good candidates and we want to get them from good places. So thinking about colleges, specific job boards, LinkedIn, talk to recruitment agencies if you must. Use AI to help you find job boards that are specific to the sector you want. Structured process. You want to be documenting stuff because, again, LinkedIn is fair and inclusive. You want to be able to show that you've done what you can. You've hired the right person based on their skills, knowledge, experience, not based on protected characteristics, not based on assumptions about other people, based on this one person being the best person for the job. And then strong brand. You want them to feel good about being with your business. You want them to feel like recruitment was great, loads of communication, really felt like I was involved in the process. I've got a clear plan of what I need to be doing. I'm getting feedback on when I'm not doing quite the right thing. Feel like I'm growing within the role. I feel like I'm trusted. They're going to stay. If you just hire somebody and leave them to get on with it, and then 3 months in say, actually, you're doing a terrible job, that's terrible for your brand. People are not going to want to come and work with you, and other employees will see how you're treating those people. So hopefully you have found something useful to take away. If anyone has any questions, this is the moment. Feel free to put them in the chat box. As I always say with this, if you are a client, our team are here to help you. These things fall, hiring process, recruitment, onboarding, even questions to ask in interviews, how we do the probation period, all of those things, all within the remit of your service that you get from us at the HR department. And these are things that we love to do. Hiring people is such a good, stressful, but a great thing to do. Getting new people, new passions, new ways of thinking, new blood into your business is always a bonus. It's one of the few good things that we get to do. Normally it's sometimes a bit more doom and gloom, but this and maternity leave stuff is always one of my favorite things because it's so nice to be able to help bring the right people into a job. And we've hired some great people in the past that have become a real asset to the companies they work for. And that's, what we want to be able to help you get is find assets, those real diamonds in the rough. Well, not necessarily even in the rough, just real diamonds. You want them in your business. We don't all want a bag of coal. It's not Christmas. So, feel like maybe nobody has any questions, Kirsty. Cool. We will move on. Obviously, if you've got any questions, feel free to drop us a line. We're always happy to help. So things that we can help you with as part of this, part of recruitment, I've just gone through them. They're all on the list. We can help with so many other things. So we are, any stage of HR, we are more than happy to help. Oh, I think I have a question. No questions, just great. Very much, Susanna. That's lovely. Very nice. But yes, we are always here for you. We have 100% from our clients, and we love doing, helping. We are here to solve your people problems. So that is all for me. As always, I have waffled too much, but if you found this at all useful, hopefully you took something away with you. We are always doing monthly webinars. Our next topic is, I wrote it down and now I've closed my notebook. We are doing employee wellbeing and mental health. So stay tuned for details about that. If you're not already signed up to our newsletter and which has details about all of our webinars, please email Kirsty. Her email address is on the screen, and get signed up. As always, these recordings will be sent out and they're available on our YouTube channel. So thank you very much. If you've managed to wait out the nearly 50 minutes that I have rambled, hopefully you took something good with you. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day. Please stop recording there, Kirsty. Oh, lovely. Bye.